Hello, science people. It's time for an episode of Storytime with Mr. Bird. Today's story is an encounter that I had with seagrass on my honeymoon. And so for our honeymoon, we went to Puerto Rico, and we stayed at this resort that had its own private beach and an expanse of ocean connected to that beach. Well, my wife and I were walking across that beach to get to the pool. We were going to go lay by the pool and relax. And as we're walking across this beach, I look out at the ocean and I see what looks like a quarter mile of just seagrass. And I get excited because living in Southern California, I never get to play with seagrass. So I look at my new wife, Claire, and I say, "Can I please go play in the seagrass?" And she looks at me and says, "Fine." So I rush back to our room to get my snorkel, my goggles, and my fins, because yes, I am the kind of person that brings that stuff on a honeymoon. So I grab my snorkel, my goggles, and my fins, and I rush back to the beach. And I start walking out into the ocean, and the water's only about a foot deep, and you have all of this seagrass. And so I'm walking really slowly because when you're walking in seagrass, you have to do what's called the Stingray Shuffle. You don't want to step on a stingray and it sting you. So what you do is you just shuffle your feet in the sand, because if you kick a stingray, it'll get out of your way. And so I'm doing this Stingray Shuffle, and it's going really slow because the expanse of seagrass is so far and so long that it's going to take me forever to get to where the waves are breaking. And so I take turns with swimming face down into the seagrass and walking. And so I go back and forth depending on the depth of the water. In some places it's maybe 4 feet deep, and so I get to swim. Other places I'm just kind of hovering right over the seagrass. Either way, I'm just having a great time looking at all this seagrass and the organisms that I can find in this seagrass. Well, as I look out, there's a point where the seagrass ends and the waves are breaking. And so I want to get to this point and see what's out there. So as I'm going, eventually I get to this point and a wave hits me and pulls me under. And the reason the waves were breaking at this point was there was a wall of coral. And so the waves slam me into this wall of coral. And you never want to touch coral because they're cnidarians and they can sting you. But also you don't want to touch coral because you can kill them and you can hurt them. And coral's an important ecosystem, so we don't want to damage them. But I was getting pounded into this wall of coral. And so without thinking, I grabbed the wall of coral with my hands, and I got stung all over both palms of my hands and my fingers by these cnidarians. So the coral stings were throbbing and my hands were being pumped full of this venom. And I'm still getting pounded by the waves, and I'm just getting hit and tossed and turned and hit into this wall of coral. And so finally I climb up over this cliff of coral and I get back onto the seagrass. And I stop and I take a breath and I go, well, that was not as fun as I thought it would be. So now I begin my long walk back to the beach, feeling defeated, covered in coral stings, and I just slowly do my Stingray Shuffle to get all the way back to the sand. I make it back to the sand, and I slowly walk to the pool of the resort, and I find my wife, Clara, and she looks up at me and says, "Did you have fun in the seagrass?" And I look at her and I go, "No."